Welcome back, everybody. It's been too long, and for that we apologise. Bruce, what are you wearing?
Um, a red shirt. I think I've worn them before.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, this. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, what can I say? The FBI.
Is it real?
It's very real. Yes, I've been spending a bit of time down in Devon, and this could be a very nice hostelry down on the Sheldon Tingmouth estuary. It's the ferry boat inn. I mean, I thought everybody knew what FBI stood for.
Of course it
It's
is. Of
of
course it
course
is.
it
So
is.
it's real, but it's not that FBI.
Yeah, it's just a different FBI, and I couldn't resist it. Hi, let me through. I'm from the FBI. Um,
So yes, we are very sorry that it's taken us so long to get back into the recording studio, and the studio is different. As you notice, the chairs are gone. Hopefully not forever, but Bruce and I thought it would be good to try a virtual podcast, so we're giving it a go. And we have just been so busy. The first quarter of this year has already been gobbled up. I mean, Bruce,
hmm.
what have you been up to?
Well, let's do a January, February, March and bring people up to date. So, January, I seem to remember the first day back of the year, No Name turned up. That was, that was a wakey call. Welcome to 2026. And then they popped back at the end of January into February. There was the pretty well attended public sector conference down at the QE2 in London. And then, of course, in March, there was the most excellent ISFL conference, which again was a magnificent event. So that I think is probably where some of our time and energies went. I know you were doing quite a lot of running around for the ISFL conference, and certainly January was eaten up with two lots of no name. We will be touching a little bit on that later in this podcast, hopefully. But yeah, I think that's where the months have gone. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I mean, January was good actually. For the ISFL and Segwalk members who are watching this podcast,
Hmm.
we had our first joint meeting in January, which was hosted by Softcat at their swanky offices in London, and it went really well actually. I was really pleased with the way it turned out, and it was nice to see two different groups of Walk members interacting and engaging and networking. I think we're going to make that an annual thing.
Hmm.
That was a really good thing. And then, as you
Uh,
say, the conference, the ISFL conference, it takes up so much of my time planning that. But I think it went well. And of course, you gave a keynote, didn't you? Which was good. I'm sure we'll come on to that.
we will, yeah. I think actually we might touch on some of that content in this podcast. I think it was some things in there which I think are sort of general concepts that I think we can sort of share out. And notwithstanding the fact, of course, that there's the Northern Warps conference coming up July the 3rd, I think. Want
Mhm.
to put that date in your diary?
That will
I
come
think
round quick.
it will. I think that's a final date. If not, I'm sure the Northern Warps people will let me know, or let us know, and let everybody know. But yeah, I think the 3rd of July is the placeholder for that.
Yeah, that'll be up in
Something.
Manchester.
Yeah. And in terms of in terms of the Walk Talk podcast, I mean, we've got a few ideas up our sleeves. We are going to do some sort of deeper dives into things, possibly with a few slides and a few notes and graphics we might be sending out, as well as a few guests. We've been talking about guests for quite a while, and it feels like it's series two of the podcast. Let's evolve it a bit.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this, doing it this way virtually has a couple of advantages, and that is that I mean I can think of three advantages. One is that we can probably do it more often because
Hmm.
there's no there's less sorting out and traveling to do to get the things recorded in the first place. We can share slides if we want to. We can talk to slides, which is quite useful,
Hmm.
which is something that is a bit more difficult to do with the live podcasts. It can be done, but it's a bit
Mm.
more of a pain. But also, we've got this opportunity to have guests on,
Mm.
so we can do interviews with people, and we've got some good ideas lined up. So I think I'm hoping that Bruce and I have got a good idea for our first interviewee, which we hope will come to fruition. But we'll keep you posted on that one.
And I think it's fair to say, as you can imagine, that Matt and I do talk about what we're going to do on the podcast before we actually get to the podcasts. I mean, it might not always seem like that, but we do try and carefully plan these things out. And we've got two or three, maybe four others up our collective sleeves. So let's see how that evolves. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
quite
So
looking forward to that.
should we get into some juicy stuff then? I know Tarragon is moving on apace.
Hmm.
What's been going on there over the last
Um,
3 months or so?
Well, the last 3 months, we've seen some evolution in some of the feeds. Now, I'm not going to spend too long on Tarragon here because I'm looking to run a Tarragon event in April. I haven't got a date yet, but it's likely to be in the second half of the month, and I'm just working on the content for that. But with the help of Steve down in the Southwest Warp region, we were busy testing out an idea that is a mixtape. Now, I'm not going to go into too much of that here, but effectively, we take two or three different feeds, data feeds, cyber threat feeds, and mix them together. So if you're old enough to remember a mixtape, it's a cassette tape with all your favorite tunes on, and you can share it with your mates. And this is all of our favorite aggressive feeds to drop all the scanning on one lookup. Now, the advantage of that is that it can contain lots of data sets. So you could be blocking, say, the 10,000 aggressive most IP addresses. You can add to that some non-UK aggressive scanning IP addresses. These are things that are hitting UK public sector because they're UK public sector sourced. And also we are combining that with the spam host drop list, which has been made available to us. This is where we have spam house sharing the list of networks operated by crime and other, you know, what can we say? People who would rather not scanning our networks. But the key thing is also on that if you go down the mixtape route, it'll automatically include the no-name block list. So if your council is lit, you could be automatically blocking that. So yeah, that's just a couple of things. We'll cover more of that in April, but mixtapes are the sort of 2026 thing, and I'll be talking about that as the year rolls on, really. So lots of new things there. Also, a big VPN list. So keep an eye out for that date in April, and we'll tell you about some of those in a bit more depth.
Yeah, these feeds are really evolving, aren't they? It
Mm,
certainly sounds like, I mean, apart from the community aspect of Tarragon, where you're getting, sort of public sector specific uh, golden nuggets of intel,
mm.
there's some really good intelligence coming in that people might not necessarily get from anywhere else, which is really good.
Well, particularly as in at least three instances now, we've got three feeds coming into Tarragon that you would have to pay money for if you went direct to the vendor. So this is stuff that is effectively saving you money, even though you haven't spent the money in the first place. So yeah.
Yeah, can't argue with
Also, we've
that.
got a yeah, yeah. Also, there's a another new one is the 3 day rolling fishing list, where it came from an idea from one of the people who were involved with Tarragon, who said, would it be good if there was this kind of list that you could load up once a day, and it gives you the an instant block list of stuff coming into your your email system, be it Exchange or whatever. So lots to talk about in April in that. So that's just a teaser.
Fantastic. Yeah. So something else that's I'd be keen for you to sort of elaborate on. You mentioned something in your talk at the ISFL conference around persistent engagement, which is not something that I've come across before. And I wondered whether you might, particularly for those who couldn't make it to the conference, whether you might want to elaborate a bit more on that.
Yeah, more than happy to do that. I mean, certainly at the conference, it was an idea that I've been thinking about for quite a while, and where I suppose Tarragon, and there's not just Tarragon, there's a whole uptick, I think, in cyber threat intelligence and what you can do with it. And it plays into the concept of persistent engagement. So let me launch a slide deck. Okay, so persistent engagement. Let's have a little look at this. I think the idea goes back to Kieran Martin, who you might know as the CEO of the NCSC, and he's now a professor at the Oxford School of Government, Oxford University. And he, way back in 2020, was talking about this idea that there would never be peace in cyberspace, and by which we can begin to sort of unpick this, that we think of sort of peace as being the opposite to war and vice versa. But how do we apply this into cyber, where there is this continual scanning of everybody's external infrastructure? The NCSC refer to this as external surface or external surface mapping, but people are always looking for a route in, a poor configuration, a VPN with an easy password. All of these things are relentlessly scanned by initial access brokers working with ransomware gangs, script kiddies. Yeah, they always come up, don't they? But, be it criminals, be it nation state, be it just people testing stuff, people are always looking for this problem in your infrastructure. And this is what we begin to understand, as there'll never be peace in cyberspace. This will never go away. So what we want is effectively stability. We want our IT systems, we want our computer systems to be assisting us in delivering the services that our organizations offer. And this is done through defense effectively, and persistently engaging with those who are scanning or seeking to break into your systems. This idea of persistent engagement. So it's not something that we can stop doing at sort of, tea time on a Friday evening when we head home for the weekend. We are 24/7 persistently engaging with those who are scanning and seeking to break into our networks. Um, Rather, busy looking slide here. Let me just deal with a few things fairly early on. So we need to do this shift from reacting to something to continuously engaging with it. Now that starts with that sort of box here, that anticipate box on that sort of nice wheel, and we're talking about imposing some friction in the process. So what we are going to be doing now going forwards, I think all of us, is anticipating that we may be attacked, anticipating that we are going to be scanned, anticipating that there are threat actors out there who want to be on our network to cause us disruption. Now, the second box on that wheel, we cannot really do. That's not our job in the public sector, not to contest those things. But what we can do is very much disrupt and deny. So we can think about if we know an attack is liable to happen, a DDoS attack perhaps, or somebody scanning our networks, we can begin to try and disrupt and deny that. So there are a number of cyber threat feeds that are available that offer you the ability to drop aggressive IP addresses. So these are IP addresses that continually scan your networks looking for these problems, and you can drop these and therefore that disrupts the following process. If an attacker cannot see your network, if they cannot see the external surface of your network, if they cannot, ping your web servers, then they are less likely to attack them. And this is part of the concept here. And arguably, it dates back to some thinking in US Cyber Command in 2018. Kieran Martin, I think, put a different perspective on it, and one that's a lot more understandable and a lot less military. And certainly it's been adopted by UK, Australia, Japan, Netherlands, in fact, quite a lot of countries doing it now. So no longer waiting for an attack, but continually anticipating that it is, that it may be coming and that you may be scanned aggressively or non-aggressively, subtly, with people looking for that route on your network, and in return disrupting and denying them that access. Where does that take us to? Well, the complexity here is between sort of peacetime and civil law and armed conflict and military law and the grey zone in the middle. So if we look at this and we say, well, what if this scanning is coming from a state actor? How is this different from a battlefield skirmish in a sort of kinetic environment, in a warfare environment? And the answer is, well, maybe because nobody gets hurt. I don't know what the legal definition that is. That's not my job. But what I do know is that there is this grey zone, which is rather strangely that pink-orange graphic in the middle of the screen, where it's not exactly peace and it's not exactly law. And we're doing this kind of concept of continually engaging. And so what we see here is that a number of countries are evolving what they can do in terms of peacetime to follow up on and pursue organizations that are doing this scanning. And you could say, well, okay, is this not a breach of NATO Article 5? Well, it isn't, because it is in cyberspace. And so it is the laws and other things in cyberspace that are being addressed here, and this idea of moving to active defense for non-military threats, which is what our German colleagues are up to, as well as legally pursuing cyber criminals, even though they might be outside your national jurisdiction. Again, this is something that the US were looking at with the Colonial Pipeline incident. So there's a lot of evolving law and ideas going on here around how we deal with this. But effectively, I think we're in this persistent engagement phase now where we want stability, and we do that by anticipating the attacks, seeking, certainly within UK public sector and beyond, to block them and disrupt them. And that's really the nature of what I was talking about at the ISFL conference, Matt. I think um, it's, yeah, I think it's possibly something we've already done or we've been doing, but it's just a different, what of a phrase, a bit of a different spin on it, really. I think that was kind of the background thinking there.
Yeah, and it's interesting how you see these kind of wheels crop up in all sorts of places. I mean, if you think about manufacturing, for example, there's the plan, do, check, act
Mm.
wheel, which is an ongoing process, isn't it? And I guess that's where the persistent comes in.
It is, and you could almost change some of those headings from, from the ones that you said through to the ones that I used, where, we have to anticipate that we're going to be continually scanned, and we have to assume from time to time people might make a change which might open them up to some form of, further attack or an incursion on the network. And the principles here are, well, if you can disrupt, that activity, then you're going to be in a sort of safer place. So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what's this next
Um,
slide about?
well, I thought I would just evolve this a little bit. And I mentioned the initial access brokers from our colleagues, the ransomwareists. There's a nice new word. So the ransomware the groups, and Tarragon is very much active, and it sort of builds on really what NAPWE was doing. And our friends and colleagues over at the ICO are doing a lot of good work there now with ransomware attacks in the UK public sector. But ransomware has started to evolve, and I've been keeping a bit of an eye on this. And part of the scanning that goes on is this initial access brokers. And the idea would be here that here's a group of skilled people who try and find these routes through onto your network by scanning your external infrastructure. There are other routes to do it through phishing, but these IABs are out there, internet access brokers. So this is kind of evolving, and I thought this links together a little bit with what I was just saying, because there is potentially less of this going on. So ransomware has evolved. And yes, the scans will still go on because this is an active route into your network. If they can find, a badly configured VPN, username admin or test and password test, they're going to be on your network. So that is why they do it. But there is a sort of bit of an evolution here. And what I can do is I'll share a briefing document along with this slide deck, as I said earlier, certainly in the Slack spaces, along with a briefing note that covers this. But I thought it's just worthwhile sort of saying that ransomware attacks have changed. And two reasons for this, really, two catalysts for this change. One is that there has been a lot of successful law enforcement action. Now, if we go back a couple of slides, we can see the idea of law enforcement is complicated to stop the scanning because it might come in from a different country. So the UK being scanned from all over the world is normal, but how do we stop that? Well, we can't really go to the source. We can just block the effect of it. And this is often done with working with other police forces. Now, this is great because we know Lockbit 3 were taken out a little while back, and they might have reformed and doing bits and pieces, but law enforcement works. It's had a good impact. But the second thing is actually the ransomware groups themselves. And I think, I'm just checking my notes here, I think it was Black Cat or Alfie, they effectively scammed their own affiliates and walked off with about 20 million. Well, that's what I read online. So effectively, if you were an affiliate working with a ransomware gang, one of the things that's happened here is that you can no longer kind of trust your supplier. It's gone a bit dog eat dog or something. So we now have this new group of ransomware operators or ransomwareists or whatever you want to call them, and they are called the COM. Scattered Spider falls into the COM. And, rather a busy slide. It's in the briefing notes, and you can reuse this. But just to go top left to bottom right, it's fragmented. So the COM are from the community. That's where the word comes from. They're typically individuals or small groups. They come from social media. They are sometimes less technically able, but they are English speaking typically at the moment, so US, UK, other English speaking nations, and they use social engineering. They will use AI tools, not in the sense of sophisticated AI tools that do all that mapping, but using AI to perhaps find everything they can about a target by putting that company's name or that bit of local government or that housing association's name into an AI tool and finding everything they can about it and then deep diving that. So it's not the scan-based, highly sophisticated custom malware that we've seen with some of the ransomware groups. It's this AI based reconnaissance, two or three people acting pretty much alone and getting onto people's networks through phishing, video phishing, through getting passwords and privilege access changed via calls to help desks, and then moving fairly quickly. And they are quite successful. Scattered Spider being behind some of the more infamous attacks last year. And what we are seeing with the sort of couple of graphs in the middle of this deck, really, that ransomware and cyber attacks are up. And it may not be with this com group that they are after the money. They might just be after the disruption element. Their motives are probably different from attack to attack. And it was just really to begin to sort of say and build on this idea of persistent engagement, and opening up the sort of thought process to it's not just the scanning. It is almost, that idea of persistently engaging with how might a different kind of attack launch itself against your organization. And you need to think about your service desk, your help desk, call it what you like. But would they be ready for this kind of English language speaking privilege escalation thing? What are your password change controls? How do you control access to meetings and those AI tools potentially getting into meetings? I know this is stuff that's talked in some of the channels and at walk meetings, but I think it's really about staying on this and continually engaging with, more persistently engaging with, the threat actors that are out there. It's perhaps no longer a 9 to 5 activity. Is pretty much 24/7, and the com interesting bunch of, I'm going to say, individuals, perhaps working in small teams, and possibly linking up with the folks on the left of this slide. Those sophisticated malware building, monolithic ransomware operators haven't gone away. What if these two groups were working together? What would that look like? And this, I think, begins to spell out some of the things that might be heading our way in 2026. So I was just keen to sort of put those two things together, really. And welcome to March 2026 and persistent engagement. I think that's what we're going to be doing an awful lot of this year, Matt. Really.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, do you see this com group, if you like, as a sort of an evolution of the way hackers and hacker gangs are working?
Yeah, and I have reasonable reason to believe that they have gone beyond just the hacking and hacking gang aspect. They are involved in other unsavory activities as well, other forms of extortion. I mean, effectively, we're talking about blackmail and extortion here, aren't we? So, traditional ransomware gangs would break into your network, they'd do the scanning, find the chink in your network, get the phishing email in, steal your data, and then effectively blackmail you into paying a fee so they don't publish. The con work the same way. They may, in fact, use some of those techniques on smaller groups, individuals, that they potentially do that, or I have reason to believe that's something that they might get up to, as well as this idea that they could work with existing ransomware operators. If you are a large, well-organized ransomware gang and you've got someone who can talk their way onto the network, why wouldn't you exploit that as well?
Yeah, it just, I suppose it just reinforces the fact that everything is always changing, isn't it? It's always evolving.
Hmm.
We've got to keep up.
Persistent engagement.
Persistent engagement. That's fascinating. Thank you, Bruce. We apologise to anybody who's listening to us audio only. We've had some slides to go through there. I think Bruce has done a pretty good job of talking through them, so hopefully you've got the gist. But if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the
Hmm.
channel. It really helps us out. Bruce, you say April for your Tarragon session?
Yeah, that's the plan, Matt. I've yet to fully sort out a final sort of date for that. I'm working on that at the moment, working on the content, and I'll get that information out there as soon as possible. And Tarragon, like other cyber threat providers or cyber threat intel providers, is just putting that little bit more distance between you and some of those organizations that are doing the scanning. I'm afraid we can't help you with the social engineering aspect, but it is a growing source of cyber threat intel, and it will help your organization a bit more. So that's all we can do.
Yeah. Oh well, we look forward to that. Hopefully, we'll get the date for that
Hmm.
soon. And yeah, well, with that, let's wind it up there. And we look forward to seeing you next time. We hope this change of format has worked, and hopefully, when we see you next, we'll have a special guest on. So
Yeah.
we will see you then. Cheers, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. Cheerio.